Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Clint Pack Show here on the Total Coverage Network. We want to thank you guys for being here again. Please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, retweet, follow the account, do all those different things to help the channel. We really appreciate you guys being here. We've got a big show coming up. Obviously, we've got the Red River Shootout, Red River Rivalry, whatever you call it. Clint and I are going to spend most of the show talking about that. We're going to bring our good friend Porter Moser Stan. We're going to be talking about that game with him. And then before that, Clint and I are just going to go over very briefly what happened in that Florida game. I'll talk a little bit about what went wrong offensively. I'll kind of just talk about how Florida attacked our protections, how Florida was able to get so much pressure and what they did really well, and what that means for OU. And then when we shift over to talking about Oklahoma, Clint's going to go through and tell you everything you need to know about them in terms of what they're doing defensively, what they're doing offensively, and what you can expect from Texas. So got a really good show for you guys, and we're sure you'll like it. But before we get into any of that, I got to ask, Clint, how are you?
Doing good, man. Obviously been better. Was hoping for a win this past week. Didn't get one. And just really looking forward to a week that a lot of us Longhorn fans look forward to. And I'm sure a lot of them see as the biggest game of the year. So should be an exciting week.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We can just jump right into it. Florida, Texas obviously did not go the way that most Texas fans wanted. For Clint and I, especially for the Texas offense, it kind of went how we expected. I know that on last week, I spent a good majority of the time talking about how multiple and how well coached they are. They do a lot of different things in terms of their pressures, in terms of what they show you. And I think you kind of saw the whole picture of that with Ron Roberts and Florida's defense. And then defensively, I think it was a shock to pretty much everyone the way that DJ Lagway played a really good game. I think he went something like 21 of 28, had something like 250 passing yards, hit a couple of explosives, took care of the ball. It was more of the DJ Lagway that a lot of us thought we were going to get heading into the season. So obviously not the best time for Texas to see a young quarterback find his groove, but these things happen in the SEC. Texas didn't do a good job of being physical. Thought Florida won both of the lines of scrimmage. I thought they were more physical at the catch point too. They were more physical in terms of getting out of breaks when they from their receivers. You saw that a decent bit with Dallas Wilson and Eugene Wilson and all the different guys that they have. So you got to give them a lot of credit there. I thought they played a really good game. And for me, I think that's kind of where it starts. I know that a lot of the Texas media has focused on what went wrong for Texas and put a lot of blame on certain things for Texas, but I think you have to start by giving a lot of credit to Florida. I thought they had a great plan on both sides. I thought finally Napier did a good job of making Ball the focal point. I think he had something like 28 carries, had almost 140 yards, I want to say, in terms of rushing. So all things that you want to see, all things that I thought they did really well. So I think you have to start by giving Florida credit, and then you can move into what did Texas do wrong, which was a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head on a lot of those topics. I think the biggest thing takeaway that I have from that game is just how at physical we got. I mean, I know a lot of Texas fans. This is a game a lot of them will want to forget, but it was very reminiscent of 2021 Arkansas, where we went into Fayetteville in Sark's first year, and from the moment the first play went, we were just getting out physical the entire game. Now the score wasn't as bad as that game was, but it's still it's still the same point that we were not physical at all that game. Even on defense, we had guys missing tackles all over the place, whether it was a lot of chances we had in the backfield to get tackles for a loss on Jaden Baugh, whether it was that one really long touchdown that they had Dallas Wilson where Grayson, I think it was Grayson Littleton, was trying to punch the ball out for about 20 yards, and then another guy comes in and they just both get dragged into the end zone. It was just a pitiful performance from that point of view. And I think another big thing that I want to touch on, which was probably offensively the biggest takeaway for me, was the offensive line play. Now, we have talked about this week after week that the biggest thing that we want to see improved is the offensive line play. We have seen Arch take that step. I've seen a lot of people put blame on him. I don't put blame on him at all. Those two picks, those are in situations where you're down by 2 scores in the fourth quarter to where you need to get some quick points because your defense has not been stopping Florida's offense like you were hoping for. So if you want some time to get back in the game, you need to get those quick points. So I'm not going to blame him for that. But for him to get, I think it was sacked 6 times. And then if you want to count times that he just got back to the line of scrimmage where he was being brought down behind the line, it should have been 8 sacks. I mean, you can't win a game when you can't even have time to process a throw, where you can't have time to really see your receivers downfield. I mean, and that's why I give him a lot of props to Arch, is because he had that little time. He took all those shots, and a lot of those passes that he made that were explosive plays, that were crucial completions, he was getting smoked on those plays. So I give him a lot of props to that. But this is really concerning for an offensive line perspective, especially going into Oklahoma with they have probably maybe an equal to a greater defensive line than Florida does. So I don't know where we go from here. My biggest hope is that Sark can Sark can make a change at the offensive line. Ideally, I'd like to see Cole Hudson get moved to left guard and then Connor Robertson take some snaps at center because it just seems like no matter who they plug in, Neto, whether it's Connor Stroh, whether it's Nick Brooks, whoever they plug in there, they're just not getting the job done and they're missing assignments. They're getting out physical on the line. And it's just, you can't win games like that. You can't win games when your running back is getting only 15 yards the entire game. And Arch is the only reason that we didn't have only like 15 yards that entire game. So overall, from an offensive point of view, it was not a good performance. Obviously, there was some bright spots. You saw Emmett Mosley for the first time this season. He looked like a very good receiver, very promising for the rest of the season. Thankfully, he's a guy that we'll get for multiple years as he's only a sophomore. You saw Parker Livingstone make some good plays. Thankfully, from what I've heard from Sark, he should be expected to play versus Oklahoma, which is very positive. And then, yeah, you saw the deep game for at some points work for Arch. But yeah, offensive line is definitely the biggest takeaway. And then I have 2 clips that I do want to play to kind of go over what on 2 of these run plays where it went wrong and why these plays didn't pan out to anything. Let me see if I can add the play here. Okay, is it playing?
Yep.
Okay, so this first play is our first snap from scrimmage on offense. We can. Okay, so start off in 11 personnel, um, strong side right, and then go over here. You have a guard tackle pull. Oh, it's just a guard tackle zone play to the left side, and ideally, what you'd want is I'm trying to see if there's a way I can slow this down.
Yeah, I can do it. I can just drag it for you, and we can go through that way.
Okay. All right, you just start.
Yep.
Okay. So
like, just picking up back off what Clint was saying. So I'm just going through it in slow motion right now, but what you can see is you're gonna get down blocks from Hudson. Stroh's gonna work a double team. And ideally, what happens, because Florida is doing what's known as a sting pressure. So what they're doing is, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the play. So what they're going to do is they're going to take number 93 and number 95. They're both playing. So 93 is playing as the 3 technique, and 95 is playing head up. So they're in a heads front, but they're cheating their 3 technique to the side of the offset tight end because they think that they're getting counter and they want to cut the play off. They don't want the ball to bounce to the backside B gap. And so what Clint's talking about here is ideally want the center to work to 93, and then you want,
Mhm.
well, really what you want is you want the center to work to 90 to the edge
Then
who's standing
yeah,
over. I think that's
that's check
Entry's.
injuries. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I apologize. It was 12 personnel.
yeah,
Um, the what I was gonna say though is since I can actually drive the play on. So what you see here is you see DJ Campbell and you see Brendan Baker pull over. You see I think that's Nick Brooks or is that Gooseby or
yeah. It's
yeah,
Gooseby
it's
or it's
Gooseby.
Baker.
Baker. Baker's playing.
Are
I
you
thought
done?
Baker was right
No,
guard.
you're
I'm
right.
talking
It
about
is Gooseby.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you wanted is you want Cole Hudson to work down to 94, but when you see here, if you put this in slow motion, he doesn't reach him and 94 beats him off the edge. So when that happens and it's a slow developing zone play to where you're trying to wait for gaps to open, it blows the play up completely. As you see the moment that
Mm-hmm.
he got the ball in, was trying to take off. He just got absolutely demolished in the backfield. So that's an example right there of how a lot of the times when we're trying to do these zone plays, and especially the ones where there's a lot of pulling and a lot of working to levels, we're not getting the push that we need because guys are just missing assignments left and right, which is something you'll see from a group of guys who are inexperienced with little starting experience, as we've had the same starters for 3 years, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, like this is probably the best picture you can find because I think that's Cole Hudson, and he's standing there doing nothing, right? Like
Exactly.
that's not really an ideal pitch counter. You want your down blockers to be down blocking someone. You don't want them standing there in the middle of grass because this is what ends up happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty good summation of what happened on Saturday. If you want to show your next clip, I'm
Yeah,
sure it's
I'll
not
pull it
gonna
up.
look much. I'm sure it's not going to look much prettier, unfortunately.
No, none of these plays I put on here were meant to look pretty in the slightest. It's kind of just to really pinpoint how pitiful our run game was. Let me pull the next clip up.
And like while Clint's pulling that next clip up, I'm just going to talk a little bit about because in a second or two, once Clint's done, I'll just screen share and I'm going to show you guys a thread that I made about what Florida did in terms of a pressure path and what they did. And so you'll get to kind of see the ways that they attacked the pass protection after Clint talks about how they attacked the run game.
Yeah, so this right here, we got 12 personnel again. You got injuries in the offset, and kind of similar to what they're expecting from the last play. But what you have here is you have Niblet in motion coming back here. So another point that I forgot to push on before I play this is the lack of motion is really concerning, especially from what we've seen from Sark over the years. So when you have a lot of motion, it creates a lot of moving pieces, especially on defense, to where you're able to open up a lot more gaps, to where you're able to open up a lot more areas to get your expected results, get what you want, and unfortunately, we have not seen a lot of that. It's just been a lot of, I guess, standard offense to say, to where you don't have a lot of moving pieces, and it just kind of eliminates that factor to where it gives you a little bit more leeway in the run game and just every other aspect. So right here, you're going to see the whole line. They're going to slide left. You're going to have Jack Endries pulling over here, and he's going to meet with I think that was the edge. No, yeah. So he's going to meet right there. But what ends up happening is you're going to want Cole Hudson and DJ Campbell. You're going to want them to move up to, I think that's 28, 29.
Yeah, 29.
Yeah, yeah. You're going to want them to move up to there, and you're going to want one of them to get off and get to that second level. But what ends up happening is none of them make an attempt to get to that second level. You have Brandon Baker, who's getting beat, just out physical, like we pointed out earlier in the video. I mean, the only good blocking I see from any of the linemen is Gooseby out here, and I want to say that's Neto or Nick Brooks
Brooks, yeah.
on the left guard. But yeah, so because they're not working to that second level, and Eventually, you have Jordan Washington over here who's getting beat again. It just creates a bunch of just creates a big cluster in here to where he can't find any open gap to run. He can't find any zone to get through. So he's just going to have to. I mean, he's just going to have to try and fight for any yard that he can get. Which unfortunately, I think he only gets 2 yards here on the play, and it just you can't operate a run game when you can't create any lanes for your running back to get through. You can't operate like this when your linemen aren't getting the basics done. They're not trying to find a way to say this.
They're not doing their job.
Yeah, not doing their job. I mean, that's one of the things that you learn in like week one is when you're doing double teams is to get to the second level and to break off and for one of them, whether it's the center, the guard, or wherever the double team's taking place, to move to the second level and get the closest linebacker to you. So it's kind of frustrating to watch and just see how mentally, I guess, mentally unfocused they are in this game. Besides the physical point, they're just not mentally there. They're not really focusing on what their assignments are, and they're just going out there playing through the motions. So I just wanted to show those two plays just so y'all can get a physical representation on what happened in the run game, why we weren't able to do squat in the run game at all, and just what our biggest problems have been there.
Yeah, and to respond to the GOAT, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. The Florida defensive line did a really, really good job. Um, Traditionally, Ron Roberts is going to two gap his defensive line. So when they're playing heads or when they're playing mint or tight with a zero technique and 2-4 eyes, they are going to two gap the nose. So he's going to play both A gaps. And dependent on a lot of the times, what ends up happening is whatever side the center works away from. So if the center works to the left, then the nose tackle is going to fall to the backside A gap, doing what's known as a lag technique, and then your two linebackers can play stack fits where they're playing A to C gap. And part of the problem is when Florida's linebackers do a fantastic job, and we talked about this again last Tuesday. They're stack fitters, meaning they're stacking off of the nearest defensive lineman, and then they're going to fall back into their gap once you get a double team to work up to them. And if you don't force them to change up their fits, if you don't force them to have to react to something, whether that's a tight end swiping back or getting some form of motion, you make it too easy for the linebackers who are really instinctual and are really, really athletic. You just make their lives too easy. So I thought again, not enough creativity from the Texas offense, not enough creativity in any sense. We spent, I think, almost 40 minutes last show going over how Texas could attack Florida, whether it was from bunches, stacks, condensing the spread, screen plays, the pony package, and you didn't really see any of that. And then it doesn't help that you do a really poor job blocking. And because you can't run the ball, you get Ron Roberts getting to run whatever pressure paths he wants. I have a thread about this that I'm going to share my screen and just show you guys because I think it's it's not great what you see from them, and you kind of saw what happens when you're not able to run the ball. So can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so just play one. Clint already talked about this, but I'll show it again. This is a sting pressure. So every defensive line is going to slant over a gap. They're going to send the nickel, right? It's not blocked very well, but you're going to see this a lot. You're going to see the sting pressure a ton. In fact, just 2 plays later, they're again sending the nickel. You can see them right down to the bottom of the screen. And then they're going to send their other safety. Here they're in a dime package. So they've got 6 DBs, and they're sending both of they're sending both of their basically nickel players. They're sending the dime and the nickel, right? And what this is kind of what happened all game, where guys might be open for Texas, but you're not making this throw when that's happening. when George Gumps is right on you, you have no ability to see where you're throwing, and you're throwing into a really clouded window. Like it doesn't matter if you're Joe Burrow, if you're Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, you're just not making that throw consistently. I think you saw this just too much from Texas, where they could not figure out how to defend or how to handle these nickel pressures. Again, you're going to see it one more time. They send the nickel, blows up Trey Wisner, gets a sack because of it. Right? Like this is just too common of a picture. You can't this is the third time that we've seen a star pressure. It's the third time they've gotten a sack. This one, if it ever loads, which hopefully it will, it's the same thing where it's a star pressure. This time the star is inserting into B gap and the edge is working upfield. They get another throw that's under duress. This one, another play where Arch has to leave the pocket, or not this one, but again, it's another tough throw. It's another example of the Texas O line being stressed by the coverage rules and the pressure paths that Ron Roberts threw at them. This one's a car pressure, so they're sending the corner. And again, another sack. And so Clint and I, we talked a lot last week about how if you're going to play condensed, it needs to be for the purpose of quick game. It needs to be because you're going to set, because you're running some form of motion or you're doing something to get the ball out quick. If you try to run long developing concepts from condensed splits like this is what Florida's going to do. They're going to send pressure and they're going to get home, and you're not going to have a lot of success because when you're in condensed, you never know where pressure is coming from. Last year, this was a really big thing that everyone talked about when Georgia played Texas, and after that game, and especially after Vandy, the entire thing was Texas can't stop the nickel pressure. Well, they couldn't stop the nickel pressure again, and it's for the same reason. If you try to play condensed, you're going to have problems like this. Now it's just a 4-1 slide. Instead of sending the nickel, they're sending a backer, and it's a free path. Arch has to throw the ball away, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's a scramble. Yeah, he throws it into double coverage. It's not a great decision, but again, it's a free path to the quarterback. Everything gets messed up. Your timing, you're just trying to get the ball out, make a play. This is just like, it's too common, right? Like Arch being flushed and having to make really tough throws on the run. This one's to DeAndre Moore. Like again, if you do all the if your entire game is dependent on what your if your entire game plan is dependent on you trying to win with hero ball, or you try to win by having Arch just do everything in the world and just be basically the only good player in your team, it won't work. This is a really, really good defensive coordinator. If you look at the Florida stats, when they don't turn the ball over, they give up something like 15 points per game. This is a tremendous defense. It's got a great DC. You can't do things like this. You can't just line up and play ball against a team with a tremendous roster and a really good defensive coordinator. So I think you have to be really, really critical of Sark and Kyle Flood and everyone in terms of how they were planning this game.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I want to add on to that Kyle Flood point. We talked about this either yesterday or the day before in the Texas group chat. From the past 2 seasons, we've had arguably one of the quote best O lines in the country. Go back to 2023, and the D lines we're facing Big 12 D lines. I mean, even that Alabama defensive line that we faced in week 2, they were nothing compared to the defensive lines of Bama in the past. And what, and then last year, we had a lot of, yeah, it was good play, but then at times, whenever we played decent competition on defense, we got whipped at the line a lot of times. And what I've seen from Kyle Flood is I'm not gonna really. I don't know if I'm questioning him as a developer or questioning him as a good coach, but scheme wise, we don't have the luxury anymore of having backs like Bijan and Roshan or Jonathan Brooks, who are just guys that you're going to have 3, 4, 5 guys to take him down. We don't have those guys that can just break tackles and get a bunch of yards after contact. Wisner's not that type of guy. Baxter recently is not that type of guy. The only guy that I think is even somewhat like that is Jarrett Gibson. But unfortunately, Uh, Thankfully against Sam Houston, he didn't fumble, but we don't know if he will
Hmm.
keep the ball in his hands against teams like Oklahoma or teams like Georgia down the line. So you're kind of put in a tough spot to where you can't really just rely on your backs to get those extra yards at the contact. You have to be able to successfully scheme them in ways to where they can get those 5 yards per carry, 4, 6 yards per carry, whatever, somewhere around that range. You can't have them getting contact like at 1 yard after 1 yard past the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage every single play. So that's something that we definitely need to change up the scheme wise. And the run game schemes are Kyle Flood. I know some people have said Sark, but it's Kyle Flood at the end of the day. So that's something that's a little concerning, and I don't know. That's what I have to say about that. Do you have anything
Yeah.
else to add on with Florida?
Yeah, so the last thing I'm going to talk about with the Florida game is just this comment, actually. Tell Sark we Florida fans are not happy with him. Granted, we love getting the win. However, we still want Napier putting up a for sale sign in his front yard. I think it's kind of funny to think about how Billy Napier, a guy who through 4 weeks we really, really were not high on. I thought he did a pretty terrible job of focusing their best player. Obviously, I'm talking about Jaden Baugh, who is an NFL running back. He's going to be a pro for a very long time. To finally see him see that like we need to get the ball in Jaden Ball's hands more often, it makes you wonder what he was seeing for 4 weeks. It's not great by him, but if you're a Florida fan, whoever the next head coach is, you got to make sure you keep Ron Roberts. He might be one of the five best defensive coordinators in the entire country. There's a lot of so when you talk to people in football circles, you hear a lot about the Georgia system, the Saban system, right? That's where cover seven comes from. Ripley is cover three. But when you go and watch Florida, you see all of those things. You see them play Ripley's cover three, which is just the two seam flat players. They're going to match their receivers up. So if you get four verticals, which is traditionally the weakness of cover three, when you get four verticals, both of the seam flat players are going to carry the slot receivers inside. And so what ends up happening is you remove a lot of the weaknesses of Ripley's cover three. And then you have cover seven, which is man match quarters. And all man match means is I have my guy unless. So just an example, mod. A lot of people know this as man on demand or man on deep. So all that means is I have man coverage unless my receiver is shallow or short. Then I'm going to zone off to the deep quarter, which is just one of the four deepest zones, right? So Ron Roberts does all of that stuff, except when he's in his quarters package, he's much more expansive than a lot of the guys in the Saban family. A lot of the guys in the Saban family do not do what Ron Roberts does. And that's not even including the fact that Ron Roberts is the godfather of the simulated pressure and the creeper. He's the guy who, in 2021, when Dan Lanning got super famous for all the simulated pressures, Ron Roberts had been doing that for a very, very long time. So I think you just want to end with that for all the Florida fans. You're going to want to keep Ron Roberts really good at his job when he has good talent. You see what happens. Just go look at 2021 Baylor. They were a top five defense in the country, and they won a Sugar Bowl because of it. So give a lot of credit to Florida, and I'm really excited for the game against A&M. We're obviously not going to be talking about it today because of Red River, but that's a game that I'm keeping a close eye on.
Yeah, speaking of A&M, thank you for tuning in, Gigambart. Um, Appreciate that. Yeah, you guys are on a roll right now. Wish I didn't have many nice things to say about y'all, but y'all are on a roll right now. And back to that Napier comment. Yeah, I mean, look what Napier does when he's motivated. You saw at the end of last year. It's kind of like what Kentucky fans say. You don't want to see a motivated Mark Stoops. Um, yeah, Billy Napier, he just knows how to just keep his job. But anyways, so we're about to touch into Oklahoma, but before that, we did want to talk about one thing. It was kind of all over social media today. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
share my screen. Let's see. All right, all right. Can we see it there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think was it posted today? Yeah. So earlier today at 2:05 p.m., someone from the Athletic, which is the sports column of the New York Times, posted an article titling "Is Arch Manning college football's first flop?" And the caption reads, "Many people are having a bad year in college football, but Arch Manning is having one of the worst. The quarterback has gone from preseason Heisman Trophy favorite and projected number one NFL draft pick to a man synonymous with failure." I the words I have for that is I don't even know where to start with that. So you have a kid who hasn't started a full season yet. He only had 3 starts coming into this season. Actually, only 2 because UTSA he didn't start, but he played for most of the game. Regardless of that, you have a kid who it's not like he's putting himself out there like someone like Johnny Manziel was back then, or someone like Diego Pavia has been doing this offseason. This kid's been quiet. He's been under the radar. He's not asked for this attention. He's not proclaimed himself to be one of these amazing quarterbacks. The media gave him this title because don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but a lot of this because of his last name and the hype. It's just a bunch of media hype beasts behind this whole thing. And when you give a player like that these unrealistic expectations that he's going to win the Heisman year one, that he's the best quarterback we've seen since Tim Tebow, quoting Paul Feinbaum, um, and just all of these different titles and accolades and expectations to where you're expecting this kid to come into his first year as a starter and be the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. And that was doomed to have him end up failing because no quarterback's going to live up to that. I don't think I expected him. I don't think you expected him. I don't think any realistic Texas fan expected him to live up to this. And just from these little growing pains, and what's interesting about the timing of this post is if you would have maybe posted this after UTEP, I still think it's terrible to call him synonymous with failure because it's only 3 games in, but I could understand, yeah, he's not playing good. But for a kid who's improved from week one to this past week, which yeah, he threw 2 picks, but we talked about this earlier. He played pretty dang good for the situation he was put in the circumstances. So to call him synonymous with failure when one, they have a winning record, so that's in itself I don't get. Two, it's not like he's the reason that we lost this past game. If you want to talk about Ohio State, yeah, it probably was because of Arch's play. But other than that, I don't know. It's mind blowing to me that they just let anybody with a keyboard become a sports writer, and that's really what it is. Because a lot of these guys you see with the AP poll votes that they don't watch the game, they don't know what they're talking about. They couldn't tell you what a cover three is on defense. They couldn't tell you what a zone play is. They couldn't tell you any of that. All they see is, oh, Manning, last name, he's a quarterback at Texas, and they'll just make an article on that. So, didn't mean to go into too much of a rant if I did, but I just think that the article and just everything in itself is pretty pathetic and just horrible writing in itself.
Yeah, I think David, you said it well. Like a lot of these writers couldn't tell you what Florida runs. A lot of fans couldn't tell you what Florida runs. They probably don't know what cover five is for Florida or what Indian means for Florida. And if you don't, to me, I don't think you are ever in a position to comment on a quarterback or a team or how they're playing or what they're doing if you don't really know what they're running or if you don't know what a quarterback's seeing, if you don't know why something is happening. I don't think you can make a comment about that, especially not after this Saturday when I thought all things considered Arch played a good game. Like he got pressured on something like 36 of his 40 dropbacks. You're not gonna have a lot of success when you're pressured on all but 4 of your dropbacks. It's just not gonna happen, especially when you're getting pressured on every single dropback. I thought he competed really hard. I thought he made some really big time throws, and so I think it's really premature, like Gigam Bart said. Like this is a guy who's now played in 6 starts. It's way too early to be saying anything about him. To call him a failure this early after the game he just played is pretty absurd to me. But I think this is one of those things where it's again just the national media looking for clicks, and I don't think we should really give them much attention. I think when you we had to do it because it was just we felt like it was appropriate for us to call them out. But in general, I don't think we should be giving media like this that attention and giving them what they want. So we can put that behind us. We got a really big game coming up this weekend. It's the Red River rivalry, Red River shootout. I call it the shootout. That's what I grew up on. So we're really looking forward to that game. We're gonna bring our friend Porter Moser Stan up here in just a second, and he's gonna help us break down this game. But we're gonna go through. Clint's gonna obviously go through the Oklahoma defense. I'll draw on the whiteboard some of the stuff that they do really well, and then we'll obviously talk about John Mateer and everything else that heads into the matchup. So we're gonna bring up Porter here in just a second, and then we'll get rolling.
Yep, and for anyone who's unfamiliar with him, he is going to be an Oklahoma fan. So any of you Sooner guys
In case you
watching,
didn't, in case you didn't know, Porter Moser, kind of a tongue twister, is the he is the. Do you call it the head coach if it's basketball? I think you
yeah,
do.
no, yeah,
Yeah,
he's the head coach of basketball. The only sport you don't call it that is for baseball, where it'd be the manager.
that's what I assumed. But I
Yeah,
don't. In case anyone was wondering, I don't watch a lot of I don't watch a lot of basketball. I'm really a football only guy. So you won't find. I can't tell you much about Porter or Moser or wherever he's coached, whatever he's done. Don't know anything about him. So don't be expecting any basketball talks in here, guys.
how you doing, man?
What's up, fellas? How are we?
Doing
Good.
good, man. Just
Appreciate you guys having me on.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Just excited for this annual uh game that we have. The Not even just a game; it's a whole festivities, everything just around the game. It's unique and in itself one of one in college football.
For sure, man. For sure.
Okay, so the first thing I have to ask you, do you call it shootout or rivalry?
Kind of just depends, man. Rivalry is a little bit of a tongue twister, but I grew up on the shootout, so um, just whatever comes to me that day. More Red River rivalry typically, but the shootout seemed to those are better times, right?
For you
Yeah,
guys.
So
yeah.
kind of just depends on the day, man. Depends on the day.
Okay, so obviously, I think the big talking point this week heading into the game is going to be if Jean Mateer plays or not.
Sure.
Obviously, Michael Hawkins played on Saturday against Kent State. You guys won 44-0. Just kind of walk us through how you thought Hawkins played on Saturday and how you kind of think the matchup changes to if Mateer's playing versus if it's Hawkins playing.
So for me, I've got kind of two outlooks on it. I was not super impressed with Mike Saturday, and I know that's a little bit of rust. First game action, Kent State, probably your worst FBS football team, this year and last year. It was, it's probably bottom three out of the 136. He had that throw, second play of the game where he overthrew Keontae Lewis, ran into the brick wall. We all saw that. I didn't love the play call at the opposing 30, throwing a go route. It was about 5 seconds late, to be honest. I think that shook a little bit of confidence early. Kind of got it back, was doing a lot of the sidearm, weird, wonky arm action that you would see typically at a Mateer. Pretty accurate, didn't have a bad game, threw for 160. I mean, it wasn't a game where you're going to gauge a ton, right? So I think personally for me, he presents a little bit of a different challenge, but it's a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. His arm is average, right? So I don't necessarily think I don't think we win the football game if John Mateer doesn't play on Saturday. It's a weird spot. I think I'm not totally confident in Hawkins, and I don't think a lot of the fan base, we were getting a lot of he's ready, he's progressed, he's doing well. And I know it's a 1 game sample size. I know it's all of that, but it didn't instill a lot of confidence for me going into Saturday if he's got to take the reps. And I could be wrong. He could come out and show me completely different. I know, they weren't showing a lot Saturday. It was kind of vanilla, his legs are kind of the X factor, right? But we also thought his legs were the X factor last year to an extent. I know there was other circumstances with our offensive line and our wide receivers last year, but um, Anthony Hill is not slow. Your linebackers are not slow. East, west, side to side. It's a really quick bunch. Cover a lot of ground, even your edges. So with Colin and so that makes me nervous. It's not, I don't think his legs are going to be as big a factor. You guys contained him last year for the most part pretty well, albeit different offensive line. So I don't know, man. I'm kind of on the train. I think if Mateer plays, I think we win the football game. I think if Hawkins plays, you guys win the football game. That's just where I'm at from I think it's close either way, but it's not going to be a high scoring game, as you guys know. It's going to be, 17-13, something like that, 17-16, 26, something like along those lines.
Yeah, I'm with you on, especially if Mateer plays. I feel pretty confident in OU just because you mentioned it with in terms of the run game, in terms of them just being different styles of quarterbacks. I think, and you'll know this better than me, but I
Sure.
think Hawkins is a little bit more like zone read. We're going to try to get him out on the perimeter. We're not trying to get him to take a bunch of hits. Whereas Mateer, he doesn't look super big, but when you actually see him and when he's playing on the football field, he takes contact really well. You can run more of the power game with him, whether that's QB counter, QB bash, where we're running him into A gap. You're a little bit more
Right.
confident with. He gives you more of a traditional run game,
Right.
and especially in a game like this where I don't think either team is going to run the ball very well. Knowing that you can have Mateer average something like 4 yards a carry or 5 yards a carry, or on like 6 or 7 or maybe even like 2 or 3 drives, just get you into really manageable third downs. That's really really important for for both teams, and I think just Mateer's legs being able to get you into more manageable third downs and being able to extend plays in addition to the fact that he's obviously an incredible thrower of the football. He is accurate for the most part. He'll occasionally get 1 or 2 times where he's sailing the ball, but it doesn't happen very often. I think that's been cleaned up a considerable bit since the Michigan game, specifically against Auburn. I thought it looked a lot cleaner. There was one maybe that I remember watching on tape, but so I think it's a really good point you make in that if Mateer plays, I think it stresses the Texas defense in a way that Dylan Gabriel did, where
Agreed.
you don't it's not just it's QB run or we only fear his legs. It's the fact that he's really accurate, he's good on the move, he can also get involved with QB run game. And we saw the last time that Texas had to play something like that. They gave up 34 points and OU won the game. So I think you make a really good point on the difference with quarterbacks. I think even with Hawkins, I think for OU, you feel pretty confident because of the other side of the ball, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. I agree with you. I think it's a low scoring game either way. I think I probably lean towards like a 23-13, 20-10 type of win for OU if Mateer plays, and then if it's Hawkins, low scoring game, something like 17-13, 13-10. And I would still pick OU to win just because, as shocking as it sounds and as crazy as it sounds, if someone told you this in the preseason, I think OU's got the better O line.
I think, it's coming along. I'm still a little bit disappointed from Saturday did not look good from a pass pro perspective, which was a little bit surprising because our pass pro has been really, really good this year,
Yeah,
especially against Michigan and Auburn,
yeah,
which
I
are
thought he was awesome.
two of the better fronts we'll see this year. So it looked really good. It didn't look good Saturday, and that could be, you're not getting up. Your edges are a little bit smaller. It's almost like you got linebackers trying to, rush, on the outside. So a little bit smaller. So your technique has to change.
Hmm.
Um, so wasn't a lot of that Hawkins was holding the football too. He was in the pocket, in the pocket, in the pocket, and then he would try to bail last second, and it was like, so it looked. So there were a couple of things that were a little bit cause for concern. Um, I don't. It's my X factor going into the game Saturday is Jay Knott. Um, I think that gets a little bit overlooked, and a lot of people are saying that maybe he's just not good. I hear that a lot, from my fan base and from the, landscape. He's just maybe he's just not good. You brought him in, maybe he's just not good. Well, I'm not on that train. I'm not on the Jay Knott's just not good train. I think Jay Knott is a good football player, regardless of coming off injury or not. And he showed a little bit of that Saturday. Our running back room is driving me crazy, and it has for the last 3 seasons because it was a running back fight. It was Joe Mixon, it was Samaje Perine, it was Kennedy Brooks, it was Rodney Anderson, it was all these guys, Eric Gray, constantly, Damian Williams. And then the last 3 seasons, it's just been like, what are we doing? We can't find a back that can break a few tackles or can, put a move on somebody, make somebody miss. It's been disappointing, and Ott showed a little bit of patience. Torrey Blaylock, true freshmen, look really, really solid this year. Definitely exceeded my expectations, and I think the fan base is. I don't think anybody expected him to have this role, but it has to be. And I've tweeted before, it has to be Ott and Blaylock as your 1-2 punch going forward, and then situationally throw in Javante Barnes, and just go from there. And it's disappointing because you do have the number one running back of the, from the 25 class or 24 class, just sitting on your bench in Taylor Tatum. So a little bit disappointing, but it's, I think Jay Knott, we're going to have to find some kind of run game Saturday for us to be, I think for us to win the football game, whether that's situationally like it was in Michigan against Michigan, where, we ran the football effectively when we had to. We didn't run the ball well all game, but when we had to, we could, and I think you made a great point with the Mateer thing. It's more draw. It's a gap. It's not, you're trying to get around your tackles and trying to make a play in space. I think if we have to resort to trying to make a play in space with the quarterback, I think we're in trouble, because that's where I think Anthony Hill and Ty Anthony Smith and even Colin and Trey and some of those guys are going to be able to make plays in space to as if, not, but the interior. And I've been saying this since before the season, and I got ridiculed for it. Anytime you have to, and this goes for anybody, this isn't just for Texas and bias aside, if you have to pick up 6 guys in one portal window, I don't see how you can say that unit isn't going to have a drop off, especially in the spring portal window, right? So I said that preseason, I got ridiculed for it, but I feel the same way with OU. I feel the same way with any other team in college football. You can't just replace what you guys have been putting out the last, 2 to 3 seasons on the interior.
Yeah, before Clint goes, I just want to say I agree with that. I think, right, like when you have to take portal guys to replace the 4 defensive linemen that we saw Texas have, whether it was Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, like those are all guys that went in the top 3 rounds, I believe. That's really hard to replace, and when you're having to do it with guys who are coming in the spring who only have the summer to get ready, that's a really tall task. It's not, and again, I'm not going to say they were in the portal for a reason, because some of them, we can be honest, Texas tampered with. They got them into the portal, but again, when you have to replace that much depth with guys in the portal, it's not going to be what it was in seasons prior for Texas, and you did see that this weekend against Florida. I think you made a good point there. So I don't know that I would say the Texas defensive line in this game particularly is runnable on, but I don't know that OU needs to do that, right? Because I don't think on the other side, I know for a fact OU's defense is not runnable. And this is probably the perfect time for us to move to that side of the ball. I really like OU's defense. Porter, you and I've had this conversation a lot. I've pretty much been on the train that this is a top 2 defense in the SEC. Now, to me, it's pretty clearly the best defense in the SEC. I've been calling Venables one of my favorite defensive minds for a super long time. I've known and studied him since Clemson. I think he's maybe the best pressure path designer in all of college football. And that says a lot, because we were just talking about Ron Roberts and all of the havoc he created. Brent Venables isn't a slouch. He's really, really good. He knows what he's looking at. He exploits protection rules better than almost anyone in the entire country. So I'm a really big fan of him. I think at times there is a little bit of the corners can be a little aggressive
Susceptible.
playing downhill. Yeah, where
We're
you
a little
saw
bit susceptible, and didn't mean to cut you off, but I think in his defense, a lot of 4-2-5s, a lot of zone. He runs a lot of zone blitzes,
Mhm.
different, and it's not. I think where people get it confused is it's not a super complex defense. Pre-snap, it can get a little bit complex, but it's not like he's running any super complex concepts. Similar to Ohio State, I think.
Yeah,
It's I know everybody was like, well, that's an NFL defense, or that's a Florida runs 10 times
yeah,
it's 10 times more complex than what we'll run. The only thing I'll say is it's a lot of we're going to be bringing not just four guys, right? It's going to be 5 and 6 guys. It's going to be, and I think the one area, even from last year, because our defense was good last year, we're faster this year. We're
yeah,
faster. There's more depth on the interior, which David Stone took a huge jump.
yeah.
Jaden Jackson took the jump that we thought he would. But the corners are susceptible. Eli Bowen is back healthy, and I don't think true freshman Cortland Guillory, he had a good season up until Auburn. He got exploited by Cam Coleman, which a lot of young corners will. It's part of the growing
Mhm.
process. But he also got exploited against Kent State a little bit. So I think it'll be Eli Bowen and Gentry Williams, corner 1 and corner 2 come Saturday. Experience, older guys, or Gentry at least. Eli's played in it. So I think that's what it'll come Saturday. But that is his defense, susceptible to the big play, especially in the pass game. That's kind of what his. If you can make the plays, which I think Arch is capable of, especially after watching Saturday, there's plays to be made against Brent's defense. Maybe not in the run game, but definitely in the pass game.
Yeah, Clint, did you have any thoughts? We went almost, I think, 10 minutes without hearing you say anything. So,
Sorry.
No, you guys are good. I just wanted to, while y'all were doing that, I kind of just got some stats, jot them down of that are really going to give telltales into what you're going to expect from the game. So a lot of the ones I put down are from OU's defense, which Texas fans, brace yourselves. This isn't going to be something that's going to make you really hopeful for the game or give you any, I guess, optimism. So I jot down, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8 stats for Oklahoma defensively, and I'll just read them off quick. They're second in scoring defense, only allowing 7.2 points per game. In first down defense, they are second in the nation. In red zone defense, the one that's a little bit off is they're 75th, they've allowed 2 touchdowns on 7 attempts, and the other 4 were field goals. So one of them was they didn't give up a score. In the rush defense, which is by far our biggest weakness, they're 5th in the nation, only allowing 2.44 yards per game, which I think was above Florida, to be completely honest. And pass yards allowed, they're second in the nation and only allowing 118.4 pass yards a game, which you have to take that with some context as they played Bryce Underwood in an offense to where they didn't really let him throw the ball. They kind of limited him in the air, and the O-line in itself just didn't really help him, which I'm not going to say we're much better or that's going to be much different Saturday. Hopefully it is, but I digress. They're first in the nation in sacks. Yeah. 21 total sacks on the year, averaging 4.2 per game. They're number 1 in the nation in total defense. So that's like yards, that's points, that's everything combined. And then in tackle for loss, they're also number 1 in the nation with 50 total tackle for loss on the year, with averaging 10 a game. So this defense is going to be nothing to just undermine and just not expect for them to come out firing. I mean, this is going to be a defensive slugfest, which, in all honesty, that is ideal for us. That's what we want. We want this to be a defensive game to where we're not going to have to match what we would see during the Big 12 days, where it's, oh, you're going to have to get 34 points to win, to where you're going to need to get 40, to where it's just going to be a big shootout like hence the name Red River Shootout used to be. It's gonna be a very gritty game. It's gonna be a game where you have to be very physical to win. It's a game to where you're not gonna expect to have much success in the run game. You're gonna have to really beat them through the air, which there is some hope with that because if you can buy time enough um, to process what's going on downfield in the secondary, you can make a lot of good plays on them because their secondary, if you really look at the film, just focus on that, they've been susceptible to a lot of explosive plays in the year, but they've been saved by the amazing front seven they have. So if Arch can maneuver the pocket really well, if he can move out of the pocket and make some of those plays, like we saw that deep shot to Ryan Wingo, and he's just able to be a playmaker, which he's going to have to be if we're going to win this game. I don't care who the quarterback is, barring any insane turnovers like how last year when Oklahoma fumbled the ball 2 straight drives in their own territory. So you're going to have to expect Arch to be a big playmaker. I'd like to see a lot of use with Parker Livingston. I'd like to see a lot of outside, a lot of out routes, 10 to 15 yards. I'd like to see that. I want to spread the field with that. I want, along with getting some of those explosive plays, I want to see a lot more quick game. I want to see a lot of check downs. I want to see just a lot of short routes to where you don't have too much time to think and it's just you get the ball out. Because whenever you sit back there, you have too much time to think and you're having to process all of these plays that are designed to have deep shots, like where you see a lot of those plays where you get sacked, a lot of them you have a design where your main target is going to be someone that's doing a corner post. So it's just you have to have those plays to where you don't allow the poor pass pro that we've seen to affect you offensively. And I don't know how, because I'm one of those guys to where I have to see it to believe it first. I want to say if we can establish the run, it can open up the pass game a lot more and open up the box a little bit to where you're not having so many guys bringing that much pressure because me and Pac talked about it a lot. I think that Oklahoma, it was either Oklahoma or Florida. I think it was Oklahoma that likes to bring 5 to 6 guys rushing. Yeah. So that in itself is going to be a problem. You're going to need to have your running backs playing good pass pro. I want to see a lot of, honestly, probably you're going to need to play max protect if you're going to be successful in the pass game. You're not going to have as many options receiver wise, but you're going to have to give Arch the time that he needs. You're going to have to give him the time to process each play because being pressured, it was like 30 something times out of the 45 dropbacks he had Saturday. With that amount of pressure and what he did, I'm impressed with him on that. And then also one other thing that I wanted to press on for us offensively is the penalties, which we didn't get to in the Florida game. When it comes to penalties, these rankings are based on fewest penalties allowed. So like, let's say you have one team that has 1 penalty on the year, one team that has 10. The team who has 1 is going to be ranked number 1. So the more penalties you have, the lower you're going to be ranked. Out of 134 FBS teams, Texas ranks 125th in total penalties on the year. We're in the bottom 10 when it comes to total penalties. We have had, what was it? We have 44 total penalties on the year for a total of 340 yards. You saw this a lot against Florida where we had back-to-back false starts on multiple drives to where you're getting in their territory and you're killing yourself by getting these unnecessary flags, just being undisciplined, and it puts you in a hole that you don't need to be in to where you're in good position to get points. You're in good position to possibly get touchdowns on these drives, and you're putting yourself farther back to where you're having to do a lot more and just you're just having to do a lot of unnecessary work that you didn't need to do if you just stayed disciplined and just stayed focused. So that's going to be the biggest factor for us offensively. 1, make sure the penalties are down, and 2, incorporate the quick game. And I like I said, I want to see max protect out there because I don't see us being successful against that pass rush unless we have as many guys blocking as we do. I like to see the tight end staying back. I know what you want to say something?
No, I was agreeing with you. Before we get everyone's final thoughts and then give our predictions, just 2 comments I really want to touch on, and then I'm going to briefly touch on something that Porter said that I think is really important. So, one, is this a game that could come down to which QB can run more and which defense can get a score? I don't think that's a weird thought.
Yeah.
I think that's probably spot on. Especially if it is Hawkins, if it's Mateer. I think it feels like that has to be more of Texas's game plan, where they're gonna need Arch to be a serious threat in the run game, and then they're gonna need their defense to give them a couple short fields. I don't think that Texas is going to be able to move it down on OU's defense two or three times, having to go 70 plus yards. I don't even think they did that against Florida. I'm pretty sure one of their scoring drives was off of the fumble, where they
Hmm.
got to go something like 55 yards, and then the other two were massive explosives. I just don't think that that's a recipe for success against OU's defense, who, again, they're going to run more pressures than Florida is. They're going to send 5 and 6. And Clint was mentioning that you're going to need to give Arch time. I don't think he's going to have time. Like, this is one of those games where, unless you see a complete identity switch, and unless you see just the game of your life from the Texas offensive line, there's just not much to say that they're going to have a lot of time, especially when OU is one of those teams who you don't know where pressure is coming from. Like, there's multiple times where you'll see 7 guys walked up, and you don't know which 5 are coming. You don't know which 4 are coming. You don't know if they're all coming, and they're just going to play blitz coverage, cover 0 behind it. So this is one of those. This is one of those games where your protection is going to be really, really keyed on. You're going to have. I think Texas is going to have a really hard time just because of that. Because, again, this is Brent Venables we're talking about, and the last thing I want to touch on the two last things. One, Porter had mentioned that OU's not the most complex in terms of what they're doing. And he's right. They're not they're very much like Ohio State. They're, to me, they're pretty similar in the sense of they're not running a lot of coverages. They're not running a lot of different things, but what they're doing is it's very similar to how some of these offenses work, where you're running the same stuff,
Pre-snap.
but you're doing it from a bunch of different pre-snap alignments, where you're maybe running a saw pressure where you're bringing both your outside linebackers, but one of them you're showing it from a 7-man front, and the next one you're showing it from 4, then you're showing it from 3, where you're constantly changing what you're doing, and where you're able to get to the same looks out of different formations, and they'll do the same thing with their coverages. Well, they'll show single high, and then they'll rotate to Tampa 2. They'll show Tampa 2. They'll play Tampa 2. They'll do a bunch of different things in terms of how they're disguising, where they're not gonna do what Florida does or what Georgia does or what Ole Miss does or Oregon does or any of these more like Saban family teams. But what they will do is they'll continuously change the picture on you, where you don't really know what you're going to get because of how diverse their toolbox is and because of the way they teach it. And I think that's one of the beauties of what Brent Venables does, is because he's somewhat simplistic in terms of the concepts, it allows him to be super complex from a week by week basis to really attack what teams do really well. And I think you see this repeatedly, where against Michigan and Auburn, the game plans look very different. They don't look like they're the same team. Whereas when you watch a lot of teams like Texas, it's kind of, you see what you get. They're going to run the same things every week. They're going to do what they do. OU's a lot more willing to be diverse because of who they have as their defensive coordinator and how good of a teacher he is. And then the last thing, before I give my prediction and let you guys go, because I've been talking for a while, is what Tej said. For the Texas offense, needs the same rhythm tempo as Bama when they play Georgia. So just to hit on that, I don't think Arch Manning is the same processor that Ty Simpson is. Ty Simpson might be playing the best quarterback play of anyone in the entire country. He saw the field so well. And again, this isn't OU's not really Georgia. The way they play defense, they're not. You don't. What you get pre-snap is going to change a lot of the time. So some of the stuff that you think pre-snap is open is not going to be. Where for Ty Simpson, the reason why he had so much success was because pre-snap he had his answer, and post-snap he knew what he was getting. You're not necessarily going to get that on Saturday, and I don't think Arch is necessarily a guy who you feel super confident doing that with. which then leads me to my prediction. I'm going to assume John Mateer is playing, just because I think he's too. I think he's one of those guys who's too competitive not to play. I think he can play. If he can play, he will play, and I'm just going to assume he is playing until he's not. So I'll take OU in a. It's a close game up until the fourth quarter. OU pulls away with a late score. I'll pick OU 23-13, and then I'll give the floor up to you guys before we head out.
I'll just say, touch on a few things. I think Sark will have the guys ready. I have no doubt in my mind about that. I think the guys will be ready. Here's what I will say. I am perplexed. I was perplexed preseason. The offensive line was a question, right? I was perplexed you guys didn't go in the portal and get a couple of guys, high-end talent. I was surprised because this offense, if you would have had last year's offensive line, even though they did have their struggles, that offensive line last year was probably 10 times more talented than your offensive line this year.
Yeah, it was one of the best in the country.
Right. So I was a little bit perplexed by that. I've been there. We've been there. We had the same. It's not a new thing for us because we have the same issues. But like you said, I think Mateer plays. I think it's close. One thing we got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. We've had multiple. I mean, that Michigan game. It pains me that Michigan game wasn't a close football game. Michigan game should have been 24-7 going into halftime.
Mm-hmm.
Fumble the football, right? Missed the field goal. You fumble the football. Auburn was the same way. You fumble it on your, Auburn's 30-yard line, give it right back to them. They go down and score. We self-inflicted wounds. They're killing us right now. We've got to take care of the football. Special teams has been really, really good for us, which has not been a staple in the Brent Venables era. Special teams has been really, really good this year, and the defense is really, really good. Offense is a question mark. So, with all that being said, I think I'm at 20. I'm at 20-17. I think OU wins, but I think I'm at 20-17. I think we give up something late, and I think Red River is going to Red River. So.
Yeah. So there were a couple of things that I wanted to touch on when I think Pac gave his last little bit on the game. First, wanted to touch this comment: Texas and Oklahoma's best running back is their quarterbacks. I completely agree with that statement. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I think it was before Mateer got injured. He was the leading rusher for Oklahoma on the year, just as Arch Manning's the leading rusher for Texas. I'm pretty sure. So that kind of leads into the point I was going to make, and this is going to be a point on defense where I think Texas could really gain some ground and cause some problems and give us good field position to start. Is the rushing offense of Oklahoma. They're ranked 96th in the country, and they average 137.2 rush yards a game. So what we've seen from Troy Blaylock, he's not been the worst back in the country, but he's not something that you're really going to write home about, something that you would really want on your team and be, I guess, excited about. Jaden Ott, who came in and was supposed to be one of the best running backs in the country and was arguably the best running back in the portal, has had injury problems the moment he got to campus and still hasn't really gotten over those injuries. So you haven't really seen much of him. You haven't been able to really see what he can do back there. So I think, and Texas rush defense is number 11 in the country. So that's a really big thing that we can at least have some hope on. I never thought defense was going to be an issue for us. I do think Mateer is going to bring a lot more dual threat ability to Oklahoma than Michael Hawkins is going to bring, because you can be a dual threat, but that doesn't mean you're an amazing passer. So I've had this talk with people about, well, if they're a dual threat, then obviously they're really good at both. No, a dual threat in most cases is just a quarterback who has a mobile ability to him, who can hurt you with his legs also. But when you have a quarterback like Michael Hawkins, Porter, I don't know if you remember this guy from Texas. I told Pac that this guy reminds me of him. Do you remember Gerard Hurd?
I do.
Yes, he kind of reminds me of a Gerard Hurd to where he's very good on his legs. He's very fast, very explosive, shifty, and
Super athletic.
super athletic. Yeah, but he's
Probably
just
not a
not.
quarterback at the next level, but super
He's not someone
athletic.
that's going to beat you in the air. So that's obviously going to have some factor in my prediction. But overall, I think it's going to be a close game. I think Red River, no matter what both teams' trajectory are, it's one of those games where you kind of throw all the stats out the window, even though we've talked stats for pretty much the entire show. And it's just whoever wants it more will win. So I think this is going to be regardless if Mateer or
Come on, take
Hawkins plays.
Texas. Take Texas.
I'm taking Texas just
Okay.
because I think it's finally about time that we get one of those heartbreaking wins where ever since Cameron Dicker, you'll have gotten three wins that have really stung, especially that 2021 game. That one really hurt. And actually, that reminded me of one very, very quick point. Talking about quarterbacks with broken thumbs playing, Casey Thompson that game played his second half on a broken thumb, and you saw what happened. So hopefully, if Mateer plays, maybe we'll get some of that luck. But
That's true.
I have Texas winning 23 to 20. No, I'm gonna go 22-21. I'm gonna take a prediction where we score a touchdown and we get a 2-point on the last play. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna be the one guy who gives us some hope. So yeah, very excited for this weekend. Game I look forward to.
For sure.
Yeah, we want to thank you guys for being here. Feel free to, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show, but feel free to now put your comments of your score predictions in there. I see David did. He picked Texas to win 2014. I'll be here for another 2 minutes. I'll just look and see all you guys' predictions, see how you guys did. Next week, we'll be back to how we normally do shows where we're going to obviously talk about Red River. We'll break it down, talk about why Texas won or why Texas lost, and then we'll preview some of the games that are coming up. It's a pretty good week of games, if I remember right. Georgia Ole Miss is super interesting. You're gonna get, I think it's Ohio State, Illinois. You're gonna get some really good games next week. So we'll be back with how we normally do shows, where we're gonna break down some of the national games and we're gonna give our picks for that. But obviously, it's Red River. It's maybe, in my opinion, the best rivalry in college football. So we felt it was only right to give its entire show. So we really appreciate you guys being here.
Sorry, I have one last thing to say, just based on the predictions that we did last week. Pack went 5 for 5 on all of his predictions. I think you picked. There was one game that I forgot what you picked. Oh yeah, you picked Miami over Florida State, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I went 2 for 5, so that wasn't a great week for me. But either way, yeah, we'll be continuing that. We'll update the standings each week, and yeah, just keep us like a college game day style.
Yeah. So please like, subscribe, comment, retweet, follow the accounts. Really helps us. Go check out Ghost. He does really good work. Super good guy. And in case any of you guys have missed it, I think he's getting a tattoo if OU wins. I can't remember what it was. It was something kind of outlandish. So go check out that tweet. Go make it go viral because it's pretty funny. Kind of reminds me if anyone remembers the dog shit guy from Florida State. Could be one of those. So thank you guys for being here. Have a great night. And Clint's going to say hook 'em. I'm going to say I just hope whoever the better team wins. So, yeah.